I know half of you were at the course that I did in 2018. And so some of this will seem familiar to you, but I've tried to take that presentation and try to condense it down and not have such a information overload, which I felt I did the last time. We had a 5-hour session or 6, and it was a lot of information. And I'm not sure people walked out of here with some useful tools to pair food with wine. So I've tried to condense it. I hope that you will walk out of here today with some guidelines on how to pair, or where to go with it, guidelines to pair food with the wine. You'll notice the title of this talk is The Art and Science of Pairing Food and Wine. And that really is what it is. It's an art, very subjective, and there is science involved. I won't get too deep into the science because that's Sandy's job. If you want to get into molecular gastronomy, talk to Sandy, because I won't know much about it. But there is a science to it, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. So the format here is that we will be talking, or I will be talking a little bit about the physiology of taste, how we taste, why we taste, and talk a little bit about each of the tastes that we all have and enjoy. Then we'll be talking about how to balance that in the sense of how these things are balanced in reality, and that is somewhat scientific. And then we'll be looking at a couple of other pairing considerations that you can all take and use when you're trying to come up with a wine that would work with whatever food that you're either making or having. After that introduction, we will be plating 4 pieces of food, I guess I'll call them, lemon and some cream cheese all in one plate, and they would all represent a single taste. And then we're going to taste some wine with them and see how each taste will impact the wine you're tasting, okay? And after that, we have a number of volunteer chefs here, thank you all very much, who have all come up with a plate of food that we will be serving consecutively to all of you, again, with the idea that taking what you hopefully learn and applying it to the dish in front of you, you'll come out with a wine that you think works best for it. And that's a good news, because it doesn't matter whether you're different from somebody else, because it really doesn't matter what wine you like with the food. If you like it, maybe nobody else will like it, but you like it, fine, okay? As every one of you have probably experienced at some point in your life of having a particular wine with a dish, and you say, God darn, that wine was good, I'm going to go out and buy some. So you go down there on Monday and you buy some, and you taste it, God, this isn't as good as I thought it was when I had it. And that's because the food elevated the wine, so it was a lot better. So that's why we do this, and hopefully you can take some things away here. Who likes to cook here? Pretty well everybody. Frank does, I know that. Put your hand up, Frank. I should get you one of those teleprinters. How about who likes to drink wine? Okay, I think there's a consensus there. Okay, so if there's any questions, happy to try to answer them if I can. If not, we'll launch right into this. Let's talk about the physiology of tasting, how we taste and why we taste. Okay, so how we taste is that it is in our tongues primarily, and we have thousands of taste buds on our tongues, every one of us. Some of us actually, and Natalie pointed this out, was that some of us have more, and they are the super tasters of the world. But each one of those taste buds will chemically react with whatever you're tasting and give you a sensation. And these things have all developed over time, and evolutionary-wise, we can just to dispel something. There's been some mythology around, we only have certain tastes that we could taste on the side of our tongue or the back of our tongue. Research has shown that that's not necessarily the case. About half of your taste buds can actually taste all of the 5 basic tastes, and some only take one, but they're all over the mouth. Okay, it's not like, well, yeah, it tastes sour there. Excuse me. So let's say, let's look at the taste and why do we have them. It was an evolutionary thing that our body has developed over time to actually determine what was good for us that we want to eat, and that's good for the body, and alternatively what was bad for us and we don't want to eat. Now obviously that doesn't mean everything, but we'll talk about each of these tastes and why we have them. So there are 5 basic tastes that we all have. First one How about sugar? Anybody like sugar? Who doesn't like sweet? Why do we like sweet? Why do we all mostly like sweet, except for Connie? Well, our body perceives that as simple carbohydrates, which our body needs for fuel. The other thing it does, which is kind of interesting, is that sugar releases dopamine, which is our pleasure chemical, right? Dopamine makes us feel good, which is why we like sugar, most of us, because it does give us a pleasurable thing. So what are we talking about there? We're talking about the honeys, we're talking about sugars, molasses, different fruits and vegetables. I think we all know what sweet is. So that's the first taste that we're going to look at. The second one is what I call a cheerleader, or the best friend of all the other tastes, is salt. Salt is good for us. We need it to maintain electrolytic balance in our bodies. But it also, we have salt. It actually lifts up other tastes because it brings out whatever saltiness. So it's a really important taste. What salt or what foods would we consider to have salt? Cured meats, yeah, they should have salt. Bacon, prosciutto, salami, ham, shellfish, things of that nature all have some salt in them, and we should taste that. All right, sour or acid. And I think, again, this is self-explanatory. Our body perceives sour because generally in the past, anything that was sour was going off and it wasn't going to be good for us. And winemakers know this. The last thing you want to taste in your wine is sour vinegar. So foods that would have sourness, let's see, vinegar, some citrus, sour cream, buttermilk, all have sour. Okay? I should mention, if you have any questions or I'm not making anything clear, just let me know. All right, so number 4 is bitter. Okay? And bitter is that another taste that body has learned to perceive, because again, bitter foods sometimes are more toxic or poisonous, and we don't want to eat that if we have to. But as we know, in today's world, there's lots of foods that are bitter that are not poisonous or tannin, or that we use, and things like anything within the chicory family, the radicchios, the endives, and things like that, they are bitter. Citrus rinds, when you're making a recipe, it says take the zest off the lemon, but don't take the pith, because that pith is bitter and it might detract. Cucumber, walnuts, all are present as a bitter taste. The next one and last, who can tell me what the fifth one? Umami, my favorite. I love the umami. I'm going to spend a little more time because I found the story interesting about it. These 4 basic tastes were known for a long, long time. And in the early 1900s, I think 1907, a Japanese researcher called Kaikua Akita, he was puzzled by seafood broth. Anybody had dashi broth? Yeah. And he was puzzled by it because the taste of that dashi could not be explained by sour, sweet, bitter, or sweet. So he said, well, why does it taste so good? And he eventually did enough research to determine what it was, is that the presence of glutamates. All right, that's what was making that seafood broth taste so damn good. And so it must have been a bit of an entrepreneur, because based on that research, he created monosodium glutamate. And we still use that today. Brands like Accent, MSG, goes into food to give it a bit of a umami. I think this is one of the more useful tastes that we can use. Things that would have umami, things like Parmesan cheese, soy sauce, anchovies, green tea, mushrooms, aged beef, all have umami. And umami, those sorts of ingredients are great to add into a dish to lift that dish up. If I'm making a stew or a soup or anything like that, I'll pull out my umami ingredients out of the fridge. I carry fish sauce, anchovies, Worcestershire sauce, soy, everything in the fridge. And depending on how big a quantity, I'll put them in. And people say, oh, who wants anchovies or fish sauce in my stew? I don't like the taste. So I'll guarantee you, if you put it in there, you will never taste it. But you'll have that sense of a bigger, fuller, purer body in your food. Finally, I want to talk about some people think it might be a taste, but in reality, it likely isn't. And that's another one, fat. It's more of a textural thing. We have a lot of fat in a lot of our foods, and so it's not really a taste per se. But we're going to talk a little bit about it in the next go on it. So it is a possible sixth sense, but I don't consider it that way. So having given you the basics first, before I go on, any questions on the basic 5 tastes that we have? Anything that I'm missing out on that? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about astringency, because people, sorry.
I need to check on my dish behind you. Do you mind if I sneak in?
No, not at all. Okay, no. That's more important than me. Because people think of bitter and they think of astringency, but they're two different things. Right? Bitter is one of the 5 tastes, but astringency is that puckering or drying taste that you have in your mouth when you have certain ingredients in your mouth, primarily related to tannic acids. And what these tannic acids in whatever it is you're eating bind to the sides of the mucous membranes in your mouth. They will in fact dry out your mucous membranes because of the character of tannic acid, and create that drying, puckering feel in your mouth, as opposed to the bitter, which is a taste. So keep those two words in mind. Astringency is not bitter, but they can be confused. Now there's another one that isn't really a taste either, but it really impacts a lot of what we do and eat, and that's spicy. You know, our spice, there's a lot of spice in a lot of different kinds of food and a lot of different cultural foods, and it's mainly due, not mainly, almost always due to a substance called capsaicin, which is present in the foods that we find spicy. And it is one of those things that first people do when they have a what we call it, a spicy event. Grab some water and chug it, or chug the beer, and darn it, that didn't do any good at all. All that does is spread capsaicin around your mouth and make the rest of your mouth feel spicy. Okay, so what would we do? Well, we find that dairy products will bind to the capsaicin and actually then relieve that a bit. And so if you have some spice, you've got to get rid of it. Have a glass of milk. I think somebody said yogurt. Anything that is yogurt, or pardon me, dairy based, will take care of that spiciness. And you see this in some days when you go to your Mexican restaurant and you got that big bowl of salsa on the side, and you pick that up and, well, that's hot. What do you think right beside it that they give you? Sour cream. Yeah, and having that sour cream with the spice will take that heat away. Okay, another I guess definitions I want to get clear with everyone is taste versus flavor, because you see those words sometimes used interchangeably. What's good flavor? Or it's good taste, when really they are two separate things. Taste is basically the 5 tastes that we just talked about, and flavor is due to the aromatic compounds that different foods give off, and they totally is what give you the flavor of a food. And the chemistry of that is incredible. There's a lot of research going on in many labs figuring out all the aromatic compounds in different foods. For example, lettuce has 20 aromatic. Coffee has 1,000 different aromatic compounds that it gives off. And when you have these foods or drinks or beverages, you are really experiencing both taste and flavor together. And some of you may have heard of molecular gastronomy. Yeah, well, that's what they're doing. They're going down to the chemical level of foods, and what are they giving off, and how can I marry that with a food that is also giving off enough similar compounds that will heighten both of it. Okay? Okay, so let's talk about balancing. I mean, I think that's a fairly easy understanding word. It means that there's a condition where the different elements of in whatever you're looking at are equal to or in the correct proportions that you want. In terms of taste, it means simply that the taste elements in the dish are balanced so that no one taste predominates in your mouth and they taste good together. They're all in harmony. So I'm going to pass out a chart here right now, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. We can take part of them down there. Let's get those paper clips. And then I'll get this one over here. Let's go here. If there's anybody needs any more, there should be enough for everybody. Did I give you all the right one or the wrong one? No, I give you the right one. Anybody need any over there? Over there. Okay, I don't know if you're like me, but I get kind of intimidated when I see these charts with little balls of everything and lines going everywhere, and my eyes glaze over. But let me go through this a little bit and explain what this actually is. You can see that there's the 5 primary tastes around in each of those little blue circles. I've included fat only because some people think that it's part of the taste, and then I've included spicy in there. So the little lines there's 2 colors, whether a yellow one, and these are complementary. In other words, anything that is joined by a yellow line, if you have them together, they would accentuate each other. In other words, bring them up. And if it's a red line, these are balancing tastes, where they would oppose each other to give harmony of the dish, okay? So that sounds all very esoteric. Let's take a few examples so you can see how it works. First, look at acid there and fat. There is a red line between them so that acid and fat complement themselves. And what would be the most easiest example of acid and fat together to create a balance? Vinaigrette. Anybody make vinaigrette with a little vinegar and put a little oil in there, and you get it until it's the right proportion, that one is not over the other one. And that's the basic for all vinegar or vinaigrettes, is oil, or oil, fat of some kind, and acid. Anybody seen anybody having a big fat steak and squeezing a lemon on it? Yeah, they do a lot. And why are they doing that? Again, you've got a squeeze of acid on that fatty steak, and it just seems to complement each other.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, well, you need to watch more. You need to watch more cooking shows. Okay, let's look at another one.
Sorry.
Okay, well, I'll try that next time. Okay, how about focus on acid and sweet? Anybody think of anything like that? Acid and sweet. Yeah. That's a good one. How about anybody ever have rhubarb and strawberry pie? What do we do there? We put some, acidic rhubarb, and we put it together, some sweet strawberries, and we get a balance of flavors in that. Or sometimes you're looking at recipes, say, for example, tomato sauce. I often see, okay, put a teaspoon of sugar in that sauce that you're making. Yeah, that's the same principle here. We're trying to, maybe balance if the tomatoes are a bit underripe and they're more acidic than sweet. A little bit of sugar takes that edge off, and they'll add it in there. But here's one that I'm sure, and I certainly remember the first time I had it, I thought, what the hell are you doing this for? How about salt and sweet? There's a yellow line going there. It lifts everything up. Anybody have a chocolate truffle with some coarse salt on top? That's what that's all about. Okay, they're lifting each other up, making both of make that truffle taste better. What else did I come up with? Well, we talked about the sour cream and the salsa, and again, you see the red line there between spicy and where have I got it? Where's the spice? There it is, spicy there. Yeah, there it is, and fat. Anybody think of any other combinations that would you could use this to look at?
What's the umami with the bitter?
The umami with the bitter? I haven't come up with them. There's a bitter one here that I thought of as a bitter. You got tea. We'll put anybody Brits here. Anybody have any British tea where they sit and steep it for maybe 5-6 days?
Pretty sure.
Yeah. And what do? They put on a lot of milk, which actually has a sweetness to it as well. Some people put even sugar on top of that. But that would bitter and sweet. Bitter and manami. I don't know what that would be. I'd have to think about that one. But again, they're complementing each other. Okay, so this is mainly food oriented, obviously. It is for the chefs in the house. I would encourage you that if you are making some dish up, to refer to something like that if you want to kind of create a balance and a harmony in whatever you're doing. Or alternatively, and this will have relevance to the wine, alternatively, if you're following a recipe, I would encourage you all to look through that recipe and mentally say, okay, that's more of an acid, that's a bit of a bitter, there's a bit of sweetness going on. Because every recipe has certain tastes to it, right? And if you understand that, you don't have to just follow exactly what that recipe says, because it may need a bit of adjustment, and you'll know where to adjust it if you taste it. And you see all cooking shows, taste, right? Same with the wine guys. So you would know what to balance it with if you needed to make a bit of a more harmony on it. So this is one I encourage you to keep around if you cook a lot and use that. So what we're gonna do now is talk about some other pairing. Well, no, why don't we just leave that? We'll talk about that in a second here. Is that we'll take some of the tastes. We have some single food items that would represent. Now let's see what we're going to know. Maybe I'll talk about these other ones now because we'll come back to that. Is that there's other considerations when you're pairing wine, and that's the weight of food. And by that I mean it's not like it's 6 ounces and 12 ounces and this is heavier. It's about sort of a very subjective way of saying, well, that's a light food or that's a heavy food. And again, illustrated that very simply. If you're having a nice petroli sole and a little bit of butter, would you call that light or heavy? Yeah, and a big old beef stew, heavy. So every dish is, you can assign a qualitative weight to it. Oh, it's light, medium, it's heavy, light, maybe. So every dish will have some kind of a weight to it. And that again impacts how you pair it with wine. Because if you determine in your own mind that that is a light dish, you immediately eliminate all the heavy wines that are out there to try with it. And you can then concentrate on lighter style wines. And this is again, there's a lot of detail and things like that, but maybe just talk about how you cook it as well determines what the weight of something is. Like if you take a nice boneless, skinless chicken breast and you poach it and you put a little light sauce on it, that would, in my mind, that would be a lighter style of dish and it would go more towards the white direction. But if you took chicken, spatchcocked it, roasted it, barbecue, and then put a nice mushroom gravy on it, you'd probably more into the medium heavy, and that would then lead you to more of a fruitier red than white. So the same protein could end up with a different wine attached to it. Does that make sense? Okay.
So like you start with the light heavy when you're starting to look at your wine. You look at a menu and you say, this is light, therefore I'm going to go this way versus heavy versus that, and that's your first piece? Or do you go through this first and then figure out? Well,
that's a good question, and that's why I'm going to try to tie these together here, and because you're so smart, you're way ahead of me here. Okay, so let's talk about the process, which you just mentioned here, Don, is you want to look at the menu, or the dish, and you decide, first, what's the weight of this? Where am I going to be on this? And then you will think of what's the dominant element in terms of taste. Okay, so you wanted to take the taste and the weight, and that will drive you in a direction. And I'm going to show you a chart here shortly how we'll pull that all together. Okay, the next exercise we'll do is that I want to give you each a plate of food items that each one represents one of the fundamental. Well, we've only got 4. There'll be lemon, which would be sour. We'll have apple, which would be sweet. We'll have prosciutto, which is salty, and cream cheese for fat. So what I'm going to do is you're each get a dish of that. Trevor's going to pour you the wine, and I'm going to ask you to taste the wine, a wine. I'll tell you which one. You have a list of the wines there. So if I say, taste the Sauvignon Blanc, it's number 2. You've got a list of them there. And I really would encourage you to take small sips of these things because we don't have a lot of wine. And then I'll say, now taste this food and see what it does to the wine. Okay, so that'll, I think, just reinforce how the wine you choose with the food you have can really impact this sort of thing. So let's do that now. What I'd like you all to do is I want you to taste the Sauvignon Blanc. Just a sip, taste it. Really concentrate on the acid in the Sauvignon Blanc. So that would be your number 2. Okay, when you've done that, I'd like you to just pick up that lemon slice. You don't have to eat it, but maybe just give it a bit of a squeege in your mouth. And then taste that Sauvignon Blanc again. Anybody notice the difference? Should have felt that acid in the Sauv Blanc came down a bit, and it's now meshing a lot nicer with that, okay? Let's try that same exercise, if you will, with the Barbera, and that's number 4. Yeah, taste the Barbera, concentrate on the tannins. I feel that tannin this is a Northwestern Italian red. Should be able to taste some tannin there. Once you've got that in your mouth and you feel it, do the same thing with the lemon again. And taste the Barbera again. Does that low down those tannins a little bit? Yeah. Okay, so we're learning that the food, the dominant element in the food, impacts your wine. Let's do another one. Okay, this one will be with the apple. And I want you to taste the Chardonnay. It is an oaked Chardonnay. I think it's Chilean. A lot of oak in this guy here. So taste that Chardonnay. Again, concentrate on the fruit and the oak, and then take a bite of that little bite of that apple. No, we did that one. It was this one with the lemon. Yeah. Okay. Now once you've had that little bite of that apple, which is the sweet, taste that Chardonnay again. Murray likes it. Anybody know the Heimlich? Yeah, wax it down. You lose your fruit. You got more oak. It does not. The Chardonnay oak, the oak Chardonnay does not play well with that sweet. Okay, maybe we'll try it with Barbera as well. Take another sip of that Barbera, number 4. And then a bite of the apple. And the Barbera again. Yeah. Anybody get harsher tannins on that? Yeah, that really does not do the wine any favors by having that sweetness there. Okay. So the 4th taste on your plate is a little square there. It's not butter, but it's cream cheese. Okay, we're going to go again the same exercise. If you could taste your, let's see, let's do the Sauv Blanc with this as well. That's number 2. Take a little bite of that cream cheese and repeat. So again, that should have the same effect with that Sauvignon Blanc. It maybe a little less acid there. And you can repeat that again with the Barbera. All right. So do the Barbera, taste it again, concentrate on the tannins, a little bite of that cream cheese, and back to the Barbera. How are you liking that combo? Does that fat take down the tannins on the Barbera a bit? Yeah, yeah. One of the reasons we like red wine with red meat, right? Okay, we'll do the final one. The last one is prosciutto. It's salt, and let's do the Chardonnay. That's number 3 in your sequence. Taste a taste of that Chardonnay, and a bite of that prosciutto. And back to the Chardonnay. Anybody like that combo? Salt's not a real friend of most white wines. Okay, finally with that same thing, let's try that same exercise with the Riesling. That's number 1. Taste your Riesling. Concentrate on that, the sweetness of that. Do the salt thing with the prosciutto. So I suspect that Riesling will actually taste a bit sweeter to you. Anybody find that? Yeah. All right. So what did we learn? We learned that what you eat with what you drink can either go together or fight each other. Right? So that's okay. So you're welcome to finish up your appetizers if you wish. Any questions on any of that or comments on what we just did?
Sorry, I know my palate's not as good as many other people. So when you're looking at the comparison, we did the Riesling with the salt. So would you say the predominant of the Riesling is sweet? Or do you not take these food tastes with the wine and apply it directly to wine? Or
yes. And the next little chart I'll give you will push you in that direction. Again, radar is ahead of me. No problem. I really wanted to take pairs that where you could actually see a distinct difference with the foods that you're eating, rather than going straight into the one that should work the best with it. Okay, so I just really wanted to reinforce the principle of this whole thing is what you're drinking, can either fight with or go with your wine.